Hello wrestling fans, the Wrestling Wizard here and welcome to another video. Now in this video I've done my very best to break down the entire story of Bray Wyatt 2022 from start to finish, going all the way back to his return at Extreme Rules to the present day. So grab one of your favourite drinks, grab a snack, sit back and enjoy. Now let's start off by taking things back to Extreme Rules and the Bray Wyatt return. And it's so easy to forget a lot of the details, major details from the return because we've progressed so much within the storyline. However, it is still easy to forget. Now, of course, we saw the Firefly Funhouse brought to life. We saw the abandoned Firefly Funhouse. But what I want to draw attention to was the television screen within the Firefly Funhouse. Now, of course, this is the first time we saw the mask. Now, at this point, it had green eyes, so it's worth bringing that up. And it seemed very confused at the start, like it had almost come to life at that point that we were seeing. It sounded like it said what or how, and it sounded a bit like he said Delilah at the start. And then, of course, he proceeded to say, "Who killed the world? You did, madam. We did." Also interesting to note, at the end you heard a laugh which sounded like the Firefly Funhouse version of Bray giggling away. And at this point I didn't have a clue what was going on because I was so immersed in it. But when I thought about it a bit deeper, I thought maybe this was Alexa Bliss responsible for killing the world, and also maybe the Firefly Funhouse version of Bray who sold the world. Now we know, of course, Alexa since then has vanished the evil from within through therapy, etc, etc. But maybe this entity hasn't forgotten about that, or maybe the Firefly Funhouse version of Bray still exists. We still don't know at this stage, obviously, but it's certainly worth thinking about. And then, of course, at the end, it's easy to forget that we saw Bray in a mask. He took the mask off, but he was in a mask. So already, in a way, he's lying to us, saying he doesn't hide behind a mask because we've already seen him hide behind one, even though he took it off. So I thought that was really interesting. Then, of course, the following week, we got the Bray Wyatt SmackDown return. And this was such an emotional return. This was truly the real Wyndham Rotunda with a little bit of storyline work in there as well. And it was a great way to start things off because this was the best version, I guess, in a way that we're going to see of Bray Wyatt. We'll come on to him actually saying that in future promos, but he really poured his heart out. Basically said that we were the reason why he came back. We were the reason why he came back to WWE and was able to face his demons. But of course, it's not going to be a fairy tale storyline when it's Bray Wyatt, is it? He was, of course, interrupted by the mask. The same mask he wore at Extreme Rules, but this time it had red eyes. And the mask said, "Oh little one, come with me. Your life is done. Forget the future, forget the past. Life is over. Breathe your last. You've got no idea who you're dealing with, but you will." And I thought this was chilling. This was a reminder to Bray that there is still darkness in his noggin. It still lives, and reminding him that it's still there. It's also worth noting when he said "your life is done," it flashed up with this terrifying version of the red-eyed mask. Maybe this is a version we're going to see Bray wear down the line when ultimately we're assuming at some point he gives in to the darkness and gets that craving for violence and power, which I definitely think is tied in with the LA Knight storyline, and we're going to come on to that at the end of this video. But this was, in a nutshell, a reminder that Bray hasn't fought off all the darkness within. Then, of course, we had to wait a full week before we got another Bray Wyatt promo, but boy, was it worth it. This was one of Bray's best promos of all time, in my opinion. It had drama, it had intensity, it was creepy, it was eerie. You even had his theme playing in the background, the red and blue lighting in the background, potentially signifying good and evil. And this is a true representation of the split personality version of Bray. You could definitely see he was struggling. He was confessing to things potentially that he was going to do. He said, "I used to think that revenge was a confession of pain. I still believe that." So you know he's not fully cured. He confessed to the fact that he's going to do horrible things, but this time he's not going to feel bad for them. And maybe us the fans were the reason why, because he came back because of us, right? Because we said his name. We called for his return on social media. If he does horrible things, the blood's on our hands and not on his. That's the take I got from that. Again, the split personality version of Bray. He said things like, we pulled the spears out from his ribs to get him back up. Like, was he referring to us, or was he referring to that darker entity within his mind? It was very, very clever. It was genius, with a theme in the background building up tension. And he basically ended the segment by saying, I'm just a servant now. I go where the circle takes me. So basically saying he's not going to be responsible for any bad he's going to do. He's just following the circle. And then, of course, we've got Uncle Howdy, the Uncle Howdy tease. We didn't know what Uncle Howdy was at this point. He came out and basically said, why would you lie to me? Never lie to the ones you love. Now, we, of course, know who Uncle Howdy is now. But at the time, we thought, who on earth is this? And there was loads of speculation going around, potentially, that people were going to play Uncle Howdy. But ultimately, Uncle Howdy knows something that we don't. We assume by saying, why would you lie to me, never lie to the ones you love, that he's lying to us, the fans. That's the take I got from that in a nutshell. Now, of course, we had to wait another week before we got another Bray Wyatt promo. And at this stage, we kind of knew the drill. And on that episode of SmackDown, Bray came down to the ring with his badass theme and said, look, this is Bray, the real man. There's no mask. There's no smoke and mirrors. He even said, this is the best version of me that will ever be. So he is really, really, really trying his hardest to fight off those darker thoughts. He even said to us, look, this is basically as good as it gets. This is the best version of me. Now, we know he's lying to us because we know deep down he probably is still craving that power, that violence, that darker side of him that gets recognized, that gets praise, i.e. the Fiend. He even said at the end, I'll be asked to do something horrible. Well, we know full well he's still going to do it because he said in his previous promo the last week, I'm just a servant now. I go where the circle takes me, and even winks when he says that. Like, it's chilling. We know there's that darkness. And Uncle Howdy pops up and interrupts him and says, look, I'm the ghost of the man who sold the world. He blames Bray, says, look, you sent him away, i.e. the Fiend. That's the reason why. They are the reason why you're a shell of the man you once were. You need to revel in what you are. You need to bring that darkness back. Stop lying to us fans. Stop lying to yourself. That darkness is within and you still crave it. I know that because I'm the ghost of you. I know all your darkest thoughts and you can't lie to your Uncle Howdy. And at that stage, it was tough to guess who on earth Uncle Howdy is, but now looking at it logically, we're not going to see Uncle Howdy physically. Uncle Howdy is a ghost of Bray's, the ghost of Bray's darker thoughts. He's a separate entity. He's different to the mask with the red eyes. Uncle Howdy just knows all of Bray's thoughts, even his darkest ones, and calls him out as a result. And I think that's really, really clever. Of course, you're not going to see someone wrestle with that mask on, are you? Realistically. He's almost like Zordon in Power Rangers. Like, he'll be up on that screen, giving his thoughts, but you're not actually going to see him physically, I'm assuming. That's the take I got from it anyway. Now, of course, another week passed before we got a Bray Wyatt promo. This time we got a promo backstage, and this was genius from Bray. He basically said that every time he tries to express his emotions, which is very difficult for him to do, he's interrupted, i.e. by Uncle Howdy, the ghost of his darker thoughts. He knows what's going on inside of Bray's head, and this was genius because this was towing the line between addressing real life topics such as mental health and working it into a storyline, because when people are struggling mentally, there are these darker thoughts, the subconscious taking over that they can't control, but deep down they're trying to express their emotions, trying to get the help that they need, but they keep getting interrupted. Genius from Bray. And of course, talk about wrong time and wrong place. This poor production member got in the way of Bray when he was trying to express his emotions, and he got the full wrath of the darker side of Bray trying to take control. He had voices in his head saying it's all your fault, and Bray was really trying to battle between the good and the bad. He was trying to do the right thing. He was threatening to bash this poor bloke's head against the wall, but then he was able to, at the last minute, control that darkness. And it looked like he was about to take a mask off before he said, look, go away before I do bad things. He was able to control that darker side for that moment, but it certainly could have gone another direction. This was as close as Bray came to inflicting physical pain on someone. That's the message I got from this, really. He even said, like, I hate myself. Like, really, really dark thoughts he's having in his head and he's trying to battle. But at that point, he was able to curb them to one side. Then, of course, just like that, it was Crown Jewel. Now, before we talk about Bray, of course, we've got to talk about the fact that this was the first time we saw the darker entity on screen interfere with another superstar. And of course, on this occasion, it was Alexa Bliss. She was having an interview and she was interrupted for a couple of seconds by the Bray Wyatt logo, the mask, a darker entity potentially trying to get through to Alexa Bliss at this point. Now, the only follow-up we've had since is there's been a flash up with the graphic again on an entrance when Bianca was coming to the ring, and of course Alexa and Asuka were alongside. Now, we can't say for 100% truth that this is directly involved with Alexa. Could also be Asuka, but I think it's safe to say with all of this build-up, and we go all the way back to Extreme Rules, that there's no way they're not going to tie this in with Alexa Bliss. Whether it's a revenge arc, a redemption arc, or an alliance again, remains to be seen. But certainly things are going to be tied up there. Now, of course, we got a Bray Wyatt promo yet again. I thought we might get more at Crown Jewel, but we got an epic entrance, to say the least. Those drums kicking in at the end of his theme, that was absolutely badass. That was so cool. And of course, Bray basically poured his heart out again, said how grateful he was to be back. Talked about his family background and how he wanted to be the best within his family. And the fans were awesome. They soaked it all in, gave Bray so much praise, great reception. And of course, he referred to the mask, i.e. the Fiend, saying that when he wore that mask, he had all this power. And that was a sensation that was quite tough to give up because it was almost addictive. And basically said that he ain't going to go back there because he lost too many people along the way. Then, of course, yet again, Mr. Howdy, Uncle Howdy, the darker side of Bray's thoughts, the ghost of the man who sold the world, comes up and basically says, you're going to go too far. You're going to give in. Why wait? Do it. You're going to remember how good it feels. If you're worried about the aftermath, just don't take the mask off. How dark is that? Basically telling Bray, look, you put that mask on, you can feel that power again, get that sensation back, and do bad things, and not worry about them because you don't have to take the mask off. He knows deep down that Bray still craves that. We definitely know deep down Bray's still having the odd dark thoughts. So that left the story in a really, really interesting place at that point. Now, of course, this brings us right up to date. We covered this in detail in our last video, but of course we had an interaction between LA Knight and Bray Wyatt. And Bray Wyatt, the graphic, should we say, of the darker side of Bray, interrupted LA Knight. And of course, Bray confronted LA face to face and said, look, I recognize you've got a lot of anger, a lot of frustration building up, and basically asked him how far he was willing to go. And I thought this is ironic because Bray hates being interrupted personally. However, he was the one to interrupt someone else. That someone being LA Knight. Now, this makes sense if this is a feud, a short-term feud, because it's an easy way to get Bray back in the ring. This version we're seeing at the moment that's in denial, that's in a conflict between good and bad, because he can, in the squared circle, inflict all sorts of violence, and it's perfectly fine, isn't it? So maybe he gets a taste for that violence again. He gets a taste for that power, and that potentially makes him cave in to the darker side again. Potentially, maybe he craves that mask once more. And I do think the ultimate payoff down the line will be we will see two versions of Bray. This good side that we're seeing, or the side that's trying to do the right things, and then the dark mask, which could be a red version of the mask that we've seen throughout. In the background, all the teases, at the very, very start, if you like. That could be the ultimate payoff down the line. and then he goes to that darker side. But it might take time. It might be a long, slow storyline build. I'm all up for it. He could be recruiting LA Knight. He could be building a faction down the line. There is rumors behind the scenes that Bray is strongly trying to get back Eric Rowan and his brother Bo. So that would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? First thing that jumped out to me as well when he confronted, should I say, LA Knight, is I thought LA Knight would make a cool Mercy the Buzzard, wouldn't he? He'd be wicked. But he's got almost too much charisma. He's too much of a performer overall to maybe just side with Bray and change his gimmick just like that. So maybe this is just a feud to get Bray, transform Bray back to the darker side. Who knows? But that is us up to date, fully up to date with the Bray Wyatt storyline. That's the story so far. This is intriguing. I can't wait to see what comes next. But I honestly believe we've got to go all the way back to Extreme Rules, when the TV screen said, "Who killed the world? You did, madam. We did." The darker side of Bray, the darker side of Alexa Bliss. Are they gonna form an alliance again? Are their paths gonna cross at some point? You've got to think so. This is intriguing. This is exciting. Let's wait to see what happens next. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you lasted all the way through, this is a humongous video. As always, be really appreciative if you could like the video, share the video, even better, subscribe if you're new, and we'll catch you in the next one.